Hi there, my name is Rozlin Opolka, and the name of my senior exhibition is Button Box. My show is all about how material reflects on matriarchy. So when I say that I'm talking about the specific material of buttons, I'm defining matriarchy as the female folks, not necessarily cisgendered female folks, but the female folks who take up space in the family as either the head of the family or the secret head of the family in our, patriarchal society. So this material is really important to the show, and I wanted to show how matriarchy interacts with this specific material. The button itself holds so many connotations. The buttons that I have here have been donated. These donated buttons, most of them started to be collected around 1930s in the Great Depression, because that's when nothing was thrown away, everything was saved. This concept is now a tradition that the matriarch of the family will usually, it doesn't always have to be a matriarch, but the matriarch of the family will collect buttons or sewing material or other oddities in a button box, a tin, a bag, a jar, and that jar will be passed down from generation to generation. But nowadays we have more of a society that's, if a button falls off of something, you usually don't replace it, you throw it away. This newer era that we're in of disposable clothing and fast fashion, all of these things, the button box is kind of becoming obsolete and this tradition is waning. So I really wanted to take this tradition and elevate it to art because I think it's such an important tradition to keep up or a tradition to document as it's happening right now. So the piece behind me is titled The Matriarch, and it is a 12-foot by 12-foot portrait of my Mimi, my grandmother. And because of the good genes in our family, a lot of us ladies look pretty similar. So this could also be a stand-in portrait, stand-in likeness for myself when I get a little bit older, my mother, and maybe even the girls that come after me. Each individual button has had a life of its own and could represent a matriarch. So these buttons, all of these tiny little things come together to make us who we are today. And all of the women who have built up our families in the past, they really make us who we are. The wall to my right here holds my artist statement, the show title, several gouache paintings of matriarchs past and present that are related to me that I either know or don't know. The wall also holds some buttons and button box stories. My grandmother's button box, which has been passed down to my mother and will be passed down to me eventually, this button box is special to me because the contents in it are made up of my family. Mimi's button box is the one that I would sift my chubby little hands through and make strings and make necklaces for my little sister. And my grandmother would point out, well, this button's from this relative, this button's from this relative. Some of the ladies on the wall, I've only heard about them and I only know them because of their button box stories. Because I've seen the buttons that came off of their house dress or their Sunday best coat. There's no real ability that I would have to connect to them other than the button box. It's really important for memory keeping, these button boxes. The story that my grandmother has on the wall is all about her experience with the button box that holds some of the same buttons, but with her mother and her grandmother. It's your personal history explained to you through this material that can be so beautiful. The button quilt. The button quilt was such a fun thing to make. This process was extremely intensive and extremely rewarding because this quilt is a whole bunch of squares that are around a square foot of buttons. The buttons would be donated to me, I would document them, and then I would set aside a certain amount of buttons to go in a quilt square. And I chose the shape and size of a quilt mostly because there's such a communal aspect and such another aspect of womanhood and the woman's sphere. This was going to take a lot of work because each button square took about 3 or 4 hours. So I enlisted the help of a bunch of my lovely community, my community of women. So not only was there a community aspect, as in all of these buttons are coming together, and all of these ladies who maybe have never met would all come together in this large communal quilt. So I made sure to ask about these ladies' matriarchs and how their relationship to the button box was, whether they contributed to it, created it, or just passed it on. So as you can see on the button quilt, there are tags of the ladies who had donated the buttons to me and their matriarchs, as far back as they cared to, as far back as they could remember the button box being in ownership of these ladies. This work is not complete. The button quilt itself is not complete. I'd like to make either more button quilts, continue this process of weaving the buttons and connecting button collections. If you or a family member have buttons that you would like to donate to me, I would be more than happy to accept them and continue this art piece. Mandy is awesome. If you have not seen Mandy Weiss's work, I would go and check her out on social media. She is at WeissEye Photography on Instagram and weisseyphotography@gmail.com. We tried to do a lot of collaboration for this show, so we had a 3D model going before we even decided where the pieces of artwork were going to go. We really had a collaborative aspect to our working together, and I was so excited about it, and I'm so excited about how the show turned out. We also did a collaborative piece called Staying Power. We have an interview of us talking about it together that you can go check out. But I am excited to get my work out there. I'm excited to create more. It's time to make work. It's time to get going. So keep an eye out for me on all my social medias. I'm at Rozlin Opolka all across the board.